It's been said that better questions lead us naturally to better answers, and that it's in not knowing that we open the doorway to knowing. I'm Scott Lennox, and you're listening to The Beautiful Question, a consideration of things that truly matter in a complex world. When life intensifies or things become urgent, it can be so easy to worry and feel stuck, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's a better approach. Join me this week as we look at two of the most effective things we can do when we're challenged. One of the planes my father flew during his long career as a command pilot with the U.S. Air Force was the B-36 bomber, which he sometimes flew from Texas to the North Pole and back. With 4 jet engines and 6 propeller-driven engines, he called it a beast of an airplane. The engines produced such enormous thrust that he and his crewmen would be pressed into their seats as he released the brakes for takeoff. He told me that once power was applied and the brakes were released, there was no way to stop the airplane. They were committed, and they were going. On one of their practice missions, they were heading back to Fort Worth when one of the starboard engines caught fire. The scanner, a crew member whose job it was to watch the engines on his side of the airplane, began screaming into his intercom mic that flames were shooting past his position. Of course, my father had already seen the signal on his instrument panel and had already executed the procedure for extinguishing the fire for that engine, including shutting it down and starving it of fuel. After all, everyone's life on board depended on that. When he calmly replied, "Roger that, keep your eye on it," the scanner panicked and started screaming again until he saw the flames go out. Having heard that story more times than we can count, my sisters and I have adopted Daddy's phrase as our own. When we're dealing with something difficult and we know we've done everything we possibly can, we'll say, "Keep your eye on it," to ourselves or to one another. We learned by watching Daddy, and then by putting it into practice, that after you've taken the right steps, there's no point in adding worry to the situation. Worry and fear do absolutely nothing to help solve the problem. Whatever's going to happen will take place exactly as it does. In the face of that, we have 2 choices. We can panic and fret and feel anxious, or we can sit back and allow ourselves to be as relaxed as possible, doing our best to let go while the process unfolds. I have to admit this was a hard lesson for me at first, but as I faced increasingly harder challenges in my life, it became more and more useful to hear my father's relaxed voice over my internal intercom saying, "Roger that, keep your eye on it." So how do we put that into practice? How do we relax in the face of things that are trying or unsettling or difficult or completely unknown? How do we cope without adding worry to what is already challenging? 2 sets of realistic and achievable steps come to mind. The first is mental. The other is what I'll call mechanical, for lack of a better word. Let's start with the mental steps. Regardless of the challenge, and regardless of what anyone else has told us to the contrary, it's important to remember that we are the ones who are solely responsible for what we're thinking. Make no mistake about it. If we tell ourselves that what we're facing is too much for us, or that we're not capable of coping with it, we start to shut down. It's that simple. Conversely, though, when we tell ourselves to stop and break what we're dealing with into manageable pieces, reminding ourselves that we only have to handle one piece at a time, we get busy doing exactly that. You're already aware that no one knows your mind or your thoughts as well as you do. No one. And so isn't it time to finally take real ownership of that process? Isn't it time to start thinking as though your life depends on it? If so, what might those effective thoughts be? So let's move on to the mechanical steps. Steps that are practical and measurable and effective. When that engine on my father's plane was burning, the right steps included shutting down the engine and stopping fuel from flowing to it. Doing that, they starved the fire and let it burn itself out. Ask yourself right now, what's on fire in your life? And what is it that's calling for your immediate attention and needs immediate action? Are there steps that you've been avoiding or putting off, perhaps worrying or fretting about them instead of facing the problem or dealing with it? This is a great time to convert your anxiety into deliberate and effective action. Chances are you already know exactly what to do. So once you've completed the right steps, then what? You know, one of the things that keeps many people worrying is a failure to acknowledge that the mental signal has been received and recorded and the right action taken. That little yes lets you know that you're aware of it and that you've handled it. For people with obsessive-compulsive disorder, it's that signal recognition inability that keeps them going through the same loops of thought and action, repeating them over and over and over. Something in their brain hasn't caught and registered the signal that tells them, it's okay, I've got it, or, yep, I've done that. And because of that skip, they suffer staying anxious and unsettled. Whether or not you're experiencing OCD, what happens when you consciously let yourself know that you've done what you could? For most of us, that's the moment when we relax and then fluidly move on to the next decision and the next right action. As it turns out, that relaxed, self-quieting step, our intentional internal pause, is an all-important one. It allows us to become still enough to have greater clarity. If, as the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention, then we can say that clarity is the mother of effectiveness. This week, as we move deeper into the busyness of the holidays, our two beautiful questions are simple and direct ones. Here's the first one. What mental and mechanical steps will allow you to keep your eye on it as you think it through and take the right action, whatever it is you're dealing with? What mental steps and then what practical steps will let you keep your eye on it and relax as you think it through and then take the right action? Question 2. What must you do right now to allow yourself to breathe more slowly and deeply as you recognize that you've done your best, and then consciously let go, intentionally stopping yourself from worrying as you naturally return to peace? What must you do to breathe more slowly and deeply as you recognize that you've done your best, and then consciously let go, intentionally stopping yourself from worrying as you naturally return to peace? As always, I'll be interested to hear about your conclusions and about the progress and the changes you're making. As I say each week, my light with your light. Thank you again for listening. I'm always inspired by our collaboration as we work and play together, building better lives and better possibilities for ourselves, for one another, for the world, and for our beautiful planet home. I look forward to your comments and to your feedback. You can also be inspired by visiting my good friends at Cosmos Journal. That's KOSMOS Journal. Their mission is to inform, inspire, and engage global transformation in harmony with all life. You can easily find them online at cosmosjournal.org. And as always, you can find my free podcasts and guided relaxation audios by searching for The Beautiful Question in Apple Podcasts or SoundCloud or CastBox, or by visiting the podcast page of my website at scottlennox.com. If you find them useful or encouraging, don't hesitate to share them. I'm Scott Lennox, And this has been The Beautiful Question. The Beautiful Question is a One Light production, written, recorded, produced, and funded by Scott Lennox at Heart Rock Studios in Fort Worth, Texas, as a way of paying forward to life, being fully present, becoming better engaged with things that truly matter in a complex world, and committing to a healthier future for all of us.